So Anne Widdecombe is murdered, and they say there's no politics involved, there's no terrorism involved. Hold on one second, it's off again. And actually, this is to announce that Mike Graham has turned up.
Must be Tuesday.
Yeah. Morning, Mike.
Morning.
Do you know how long this
It's a lot shorter than you think. I mean, I could talk through it basically until it finishes. You know, I think that'd be the best way to go.
Okay.
Just,
fine. So all I was saying was that this is not a low moment for the cops in Devon and Cornwall.
It is.
They managed to grab, failure in the face of a triumph. What worries me about the police is that scrutiny is not helpful to them, is it?
No.
At any level now, scrutiny is not helpful. So the question really, and I love the cops, right? I love seeing them. I love seeing them walking around because I feel safer when I see them. But when there's scrutiny over some big issue, something seems to have gone. I'm just not focusing on the Widdecombe situation, but almost everything goes completely wrong.
Well,
why is this?
Well, look at what happened just the other day. Graham Linehan, one of the many people they've paid money to, 25,000 quid, right? Of my money and your money, because they screwed up. And you think, well, why did you screw up? What were you thinking? You know, at what point is there going to be some kind of proper managerial overlook where you say, that's not what we do? You know, we stop people.
Okay, right. So here's the pub. By the way, I'll totally right. The Linehan thing. We'll nick him when he comes off an airport,
right?
An airline, right? Because they're used to nicking people, and that works fine as long as there's no spotlight or scrutiny,
right? Or you don't nick the wrong people.
Yes.
Right.
Or under the wrong circumstances, under this. But there's definitely a breakdown, and this to me affects the cops at the bottom of the rung. Because they're the public face. I never see a chief superintendent. And one of the issues, it was once said to me by a senior officer at the yard. He said, one of the problems, he said, about the police force is that most people don't live next door to officers. And therefore, they don't know them because they themselves are a closed unit.
Yeah.
Because to say at a party, I'm chief inspector or something is actually to have the red arrow effect. You know, everyone goes, whoa, right? Because they may have something in their background or their relatives or whatever the reason is. So they stick to their own. I don't blame them for that.
Not many people have friends who are police officers, do they?
That is true.
Right. I mean, I don't.
Well, I tell you what, I'd be quite interested if anybody on who's watching this is able to say, I play tennis with one, or I play football with another, or something like that.
Yeah.
Or
I mean, I don't know whether I was with your brother actually a couple of weeks ago, and I had the misfortune of watching the police in action because there'd been some kind of robbery.
Yeah.
I don't know if he told you.
Yeah.
And we watched. There must have been a dozen of them, right? Only 2 of them were actually doing anything. The rest were all just standing around this van, and it was obvious what had happened. There'd been some kind of attempted robbery or a robbery of a jewellery store where some guy had apparently just walked in, started smashing the place up, lifted stuff out of the glass boxes and walked out. And the forensics turned up. And as I said to your brother, it's not exactly NCIS this, is it? This woman got out, sort of waddled her way around, a few boxes out, I was going, where's Mulder and Scully when you need them?
This sounds like a Channel 4.
Channel
5.
It was
Channel 5 or Channel 6.
But just watching them all, it was just like, what are they doing? And why? They were there for a good 2.5 hours. And
all of them?
Yeah.
But also you and Craig were there for 2.5 hours.
True.
Did this?
Well, we had to keep an eye on them, you see.
Was drink taken?
There was.
Could it have been actually
sipping.
They were being quite efficient and you guys were so pissed you couldn't actually
not
tell?
at all. As you know, Kelvin, in his case, not so much, but I can do 2.5 hours, no problem at all.
Do you know what?
I had serious training.
I was at a party with my brother on Saturday, right? We took him and his longtime partner to the party. On the way back, we only stayed there for an hour and a quarter.
Yeah.
On the way back, he sat in the back seat. And what had happened in that hour and a half, he was now talking Latin. And I thought that was the first. I'd never seen anybody go downhill quite as quickly in my life.
I know. He's always been a bit like that.
So we go back to the Widdecombe thing. So the chief constable says we've done a great job.
And a very quick job.
Yes, and this is in the finest tradition of British policing. I want the police to succeed. I don't want to be having this conversation.
Yeah.
And the next minute we have what is a disastrous, honestly, and they tried to make it look good, didn't they? First of all, they said that there wasn't any terrorism or politics involved.
Why did they say that?
Why did they say that? Not least of all, when they went to Rotherham,
Yeah.
the officers that were there were South Yorkshire Police and counter-terrorism.
Yeah.
So they must have had an idea.
Exactly.
Either what he had said
Yeah.
or some kind of clue. So why are they saying all this? And then out comes the statement, and then there's the politics of it all. And then instead of them looking like geniuses, which they might be entitled to be, I don't know, they look like idiots. And not only that, how do the officers on the beat look, right? You know, because if you're an ordinary guy living in Devon or something, you'll see an officer on the beat and say, oh, that wasn't very good, was it? Like
exactly.
that. What, the officer is going to agree with you. He is the public face.
Well, it looks as though Shabana Mahmood actually ordered them to hand over control of the case. It doesn't look as if they decided to do it themselves. It looks as if she ordered it. That's what it looks like to me.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because the Home Secretary was the one that announced that it was now going to be run by, not by Southwest Terror, but by Southeast Terror. So it's London Terror Police who are now in charge of the investigation.
But do you know, then they talk about it being a terrorist issue. Well, that's very interesting. But they were saying that it was communism.
Yeah.
Now, look, I view parts of communism in a funny way as terrorism of the people.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Does this mean they're going to arrest Zach Polanski?
Yes, it means really of the far left, doesn't it? So I was surprised about that. Look, we've got coming on to join this conversation. Would you like to stay, Mike?
Well, I've got to go and do a podcast, actually.
Oh, have you? What, literally?
Well, I mean, I can do 5 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so you stay on because it has two effects. The audience stays, which is my main reason, not because I like you, right? In fact, in many ways, I've always disliked you.
In many ways, it's an entirely mutual feeling.
But
you also fired me once, by the way.
Oh, good, good. Well, I wasn't successful enough. You've got to kill people. You can't allow them to get up and be successful. Right, joining me right now is Keith Tordoff, who has an MBE. He's a detective a former detective from West Yorkshire Police. Morning, Keith.
Good morning, Kelvin, and good morning, Mike.
Morning.
Okay, good to speak to you. Tell me, because I do not know chief superintendents, assistant chief constables, and the like, how do these decisions actually get made? Who says that we should say that there was no terrorist or political link? Who actually decides that?
Well, that's a very good question. Obviously, my police service is historical, but I would say the big problem with policing, and has been for some considerable time, is the influence of politics. There should be no politics in policing, but with recent events of appointing police crime commissioners, police fire crime commissioners in forces around the country, quite often a political party gets that role. I actually stood in 2021 in the area where I live, North Yorkshire, as the police fire crime candidate independently to try and break that cycle, but obviously very, very difficult. I didn't succeed. But there's clearly political influence, and the senior police officers, it shows the press conference they gave straight after the discovery of, unfortunately, the body of Anne Widdecombe was very much a political statement, and that isn't what we want from police. We want good old-fashioned policing. Experienced senior detectives, experienced senior officers who understand about cases, and clearly it should have been from the outset. We're keeping an open mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, why don't they just say we did? Yeah, we keep it open. No, we actually don't know, right? We actually don't know where we are right now, and I think the public would understand that and said, even if we did know, we're not saying anything right now. But I totally buy the police crime commissioner coming in, because that then leads to a conversation, does it not, between the crime commissioner and the chief constable. And in the end, the chief constable can get pushed out has done on repeated occasions by the crime commissioner.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, the police crime commissioner can hire and fire Fire the chief constable. The chief constable constantly must be looking over the shoulder, and the chief constables should be allowed to get on with the job. Of course, they would say they are, but they aren't in real terms. And there's political pressure or angles to what they come up with. I mean, the whole statement from the beginning by the senior officers was almost like murder without motive. I mean,
but they also,
I've got the more intelligent and hard-working member of this of UK Live here right now, Mike.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I mean, two things really. The police officers, the senior police officers, looked terrified in that press conference. They looked as if they were so frightened of saying the wrong thing that they were kind of trying to pussyfoot around. And then secondly, I thought it was interesting that the crime commissioner down there, who's a woman called Hernandez, I think, she actually came out and said, in direct opposition to what the police had said, of course, people are going to speculate about this kind of event, you know, but please try not to do it on social media, which seemed to me to be a much more reasonable thing to say rather than say, don't speculate, you know, period.
Yeah, no, I can understand, especially in the area, that everybody talking over the garden fence, down the pub, at the cricket match, are going to say, what do you make of all this? Right. So to be told. So that's why I agree with that KC, who's Hall is number one man, a hugely intelligent guy, always actually on the side, I think, of the public, saying everybody's going to talk about it. We just have to accept that the way you talk about things today is online, right? And so saying don't do things is a certain way of encouraging people to do it. So what would be your learnings from this? If you were the chief constable of North Yorkshire, for instance, what would you say when something came up like this for a second time? What would your instructions be to your officers?
Well, the first thing is that clearly it's been a terrible, brutal crime. Clearly it's a high-profile figure, which is very relevant. And we must be open-minded. We're not going to rush to any conclusions. As we've seen in inquiries, quite often people are arrested in the initial stages who end up being nothing to do with the actual offence. And obviously that can have a big problem for them in the life. So people need to be told to be restrained in terms of what they do speculate about. Allow people to talk in the pub and come up with their own conclusions and their own timings and various things. But the bottom line is leadership starts at the top, and the message should have been a strong leadership message. But these chief constables and senior officers quite often don't have the experience. There's been, in recent years, clearly rushed recruitment, very, very poor training, lack of experience, experienced officers leaving the force who can pass on that experience about dealing on major incidents. I actually historically worked on the Peter Sutcliffe serial killer murder, which was obviously known as the Yorkshire Ripper murders. And there were so many mistakes made by senior officers at the time, highly criticised in an era when we didn't have the mobile phones, the cameras, etc. But they were supposed to learn from that. And then we started media training for senior officers, something that I actually went through. But unfortunately, it's this political element now. They're frightened of their own skin, of these people. And Mike summed it up. They look frightened giving a statement which is written out for them to read from because they've no experience about what they're talking about. They've most probably never worked on a major incident or a murder. And that's the significant thing. They lack the experience. And politicians...
But Keith, I don't understand. When you say that the senior officers are all quitting for other things, right? What, I mean, literally, if they come in at 18 or 21, they can have a pretty good pension by the time they're 50, for instance, right? What does a former chief constable do apart from sit at home all day and count his pension money? I mean, is there plenty of work out there for these guys?
Kelvin, the senior officers in recent years, quite often they've been recruited, some of them in later life, from business and industry, which is good. Right. You know, that we need that kind of experience, but they haven't all come through that 18, 19-year-old working the way on the beat, getting, you know, into sort of fracas, fights at clubs, pubs, etc., investigating burglaries. They haven't done the actual training as such. So some have come in later. They created the rapid promotion through the degree system. If you've got a a degree, you could be rapidly promoted through the rank, giving them a bit of experience, a few months in this department, a few months in that department, and saying then they've been, detectives, they've worked on this, and quite often they hadn't. Now, some of them are very capable people, academically and on paper, and maybe, verbally, but in terms of the practical ability, no. And it shows, and I think Devon and Cornwall, unfortunately, were in special measures under HMI inspectorate system of government.
Is that true? Is that true?
I thought they were up until last year, I believe they were in special measures and they were released from it. Now, there's a case for saying that maybe they weren't good enough to be actually allowed out of special measures.
Perhaps they should go back into them.
Well,
go on.
I was going to suggest is just to bring it in. I was talking to Colin Sutton, who's Reform's possible new crime commissioner in Norfolk. He's running for election, going to be elected on Thursday, I think. He was talking about a time, and you'll remember this, Kelvin, back in the day in Fleet Street, where the relationship between the media and the police was a very different one.
It was good,
which was really good as well. And you'll probably remember this as well, where basically, Keith, you would be getting a phone call from the senior detective on the case. He would talk you through whatever it was that was going on. He would trust you. He would say, look, don't say this, don't say that, but know this, know that. Here's the background. This is what we're looking at. And it was all much more clear cut. Now, obviously, Leveson put a stop to that.
No, that's an offence. It is an offence.
Now it can't be done.
You would get disciplined and probably kicked out of the force if you did
But the
that.
system worked. And I mean, you might say that there were downsides to it as well. It was all a bit cosy. It was all, things got maybe covered up if the press were in cahoots with them. But it was a much better system for keeping the cops honest and keeping the narrative straight. Whereas now, I think the police, because they don't talk to the media really at all, it's a hostile situation. And so quite often the journalists will jump to the wrong conclusion or they'll report the wrong thing. You know what I mean?
Mike, you've summed it up. There used to be a relationship between the working senior detectives and the press. Quite often, actually, it ended up down at the pub having a talk about what was going on. And we aren't saying that it was perfect, but actually, at least they were experienced officers. The press knew the boundaries of what they should and shouldn't report because they didn't want to lose that contact. And it actually did work. Now, police officers are being led by people with, as I've said previously, lack of experience. The police officers on the ground quite often aren't that good at talking to people. One of the things when I stood for Police Fire Crime Commissioner as an independent candidate was that I wanted to get back to police officers being able to talk to the public because I think they've lost the ability to talk. And it's shown it in that press conference. From day one, it's been politicised. Clearly they said it's a white male. Well, leave your options open because, as we've found, the first person arrested didn't turn out to be the person. And
do you know what? It's a good point you make there, Keith, because one of the things that I warned to that white male, I said, fantastic. Okay, every time there is a major issue, a murder, a rape, a grooming, all right, let's see how that comes out the other way up. Say a brown male, a black male, not of British nationality, from Ghana or from the Saudis or somewhere like that. Let's just see if that does happen. And if it does happen, then see what price the chief constable pays for saying that, i.e. the left all piling in, you racist so-and-so and all the rest of it. I thought this was I'm in favour of it. I'm in favour of it as long as it turns out to be 100% policy and not I wouldn't bother if I were you. It's going to cause a problem.
I think the big thing we all must not forget is, at the end of the day, this is a lady who has been murdered, brutally murdered. And we've got to concentrate on that. And all the speculating, doesn't really help the people connected and friends, family of her. And the police should hopefully look at what they've done here. It's clearly a mess. It's come across as a mess. The public lose confidence, as Mike earlier said, in the police officer on the ground. I think Kelvin did, because, it was Kelvin, that you actually then, the police officer on the ground, people think, they'll be saying to them, oh, what a mess that is. And it's reflection. The whole professionalism has gone out of policing, and we need to get back to no politics in policing, police without fear or favour, equality in law. All these factors, they're the main things. And unfortunately, They're totally lost at the moment, and that's on the ground in general. So people will start to get confidence when we get strong leadership, which we lack.
Okay, Keith, thank you very much. Mike, thank you very much for sparing
Thank
your
you.
time,
Not at all.
especially flogging yourself to death and now flogging yourself to death on a podcast. This is the Mike Graham world, right? Totally dominating everything that he touches, and actually the audience seem to like it despite my efforts. Keith, thank you very much for your time. We will be back to you. I totally buy your major point there, was that, you know, Anne Widdecombe dies in the most horrific circumstances, something that you could never, ever have envisaged if you'd been her or anybody, her neighbours, her friends, or politics. And at the end of the day, it gets lost because of a piece of, I think, wrong-headedness by, I didn't realise the Chief Constable and or his force were in trouble. And that does explain where his remarks saying that they've done a great job had come from. But once again, thank you very much indeed for that, Keith Tordoff, MBE, I might say. Congratulations on that, by the way, Keith. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.